Please pass all other works. So yesterday I have introduced with lambda expression and functional interface. User defined functional interface. Harsh, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
What is lambda? I want your explanation. I don't want a proper technical definition and all. What is your understanding of lambda?
Lambda is a kind of anonymous class in which we don't have to create a class. We can directly make an object and perform the function under it. Or we can say the class is not defined by us, it is defined by compiler. We just have to perform the function in curly braces.
Okay. My kind request, don't introduce any class, inner class, a type of word in lambda. Lambda is something related with your function block. Let it be. Jitesh, you want to give a try? Even as I told you, don't introduce the word class at all. The core concept why we are using lambda is totally different. No, Jitesh, some problem with your voice. It didn't reach us to us properly. The words are not clear. Try a little bit louder. Returns any value. So just compare lambda with our regular methods. You will get the explanation.
Ma'am,
wait, Siddharth, wait. Siddharth, wait. Roshan, wait. Akash, you want to give a try?
Lambda expression are similar to the method.
What? Similar to?
The method.
Is it problem at my side or his side?
No, ma'am. Hello?
Shivani?
Yes, ma'am.
What is lambda according to you?
Lambda is initially anomalous function that can be passed to and written from another function.
Vivek Kumar?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is lambda according to you?
It is a set of code which takes parameter and return a value.
Any other point?
It is similar to the method, but the compiler does not create .class file.
See, lambda is a single line method definition. Usually we will define a method with proper method name and a block of code with parameters and return type. So lambda, you remember the points which we discussed yesterday, reduces the number of lines of code. I'll be defining the function and I'll be calling the function. But here, both definition and calling will happen in the same place. Wherever you want to call, you define it. Yes, lambda is also taking parameters and it will return value. It may return a single value, or it may have a group of statements. I can go for any processing. So this type of lambda can be mostly used with functional interfaces. Why? Because interfaces with one single abstract method. Anyway, I want to override the method. Instead of overriding the method with the definition, I can use with lambda. So lambda is different. It's a standalone topic. That lambda we are using in functional interface because whenever if you have one abstract method and that method you want to define. So if you take predefined functional interface, that is one abstract method which is comparator interface. So apart from that, yesterday we went with so many user-defined classes. User-defined interfaces with one abstract method. So I can say it is similar to method, but no name. And we will use with the powerful symbol hyphen and arrow or close tag, an arrow symbol for lambda. So whatever the demo we discussed in the end, all are related to user-defined interface, user-defined functional interface with one abstract method. So that method, instead of defining, I'm going to define with the help of lambda. Don't get confused. Today also we are going to continue with lambda, but with predefined functional interface. So there were some set of predefined functional interface. So what is functional interface? Vivek Sharma.
Yes, ma'am.
What is functional interface?
No idea.
Very good. Abdul, you want to give a try?
Yes, ma'am.
What is functional interface?
Functional interface is an interface that contains only one abstract method.
The difference between the regular interface and functional interfaces. Functional
Only-
interface consists of
Only one
very good.
abstract method.
Vivek, you got the idea. This I have been telling from yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
You will be having an interface. You take your demo program. What is that? Ticketing collection interface. That is an interface consists of only one abstract method. Regular interface will have many abstract methods. If I have one abstract method, then it is called as functional interface. You take my program. Why I want to introduce this yesterday? Yesterday, I introduced an interface block with one abstract method. If I have one abstract method in an interface, this interface comes under the category. Is that clear, Vivek?
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
That is why yesterday we have been creating an interface with one abstract method, and that abstract method we have implemented using Lambda.
Ma'am,
Hmm.
ma'am, is it required to give this annotation? Because yesterday it was
It's an optional,
just for reading purpose or for the
yeah,
compiler
just to
purpose?
indicate for documentation purpose.
Okay, ma'am.
But in future, when it comes to your framework, annotations are mandatory.
Okay, ma'am.
With or without it is working. If you add this annotation, I cannot add one another method. All right. So today also we are going to continue with functional interface, but this is not user-defined interface. It is predefined already there in Java library. We know that we can use programming to solve various mathematical problems. Factorial, greatest common divisor. Can I use Lambda for this factorial? So we will do factorial inside a method. Can I define a function in which and all the way we can crack this factorial program? If I want to do a Java program for finding factorial of given number, tell me. I'm not asking you to write the program. I'm asking what are all the ways we can do it.
Using recursive.
Very good. One good example for recursion, which I used, it's there in the slide. We can write a regular program in main method using any loops. So you can use functions, regular function, you can use recursive function. Can I use with Lambda?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Possible.
ma'am.
Because
Yes, ma'am.
if you write anything with function by passing a number and returning the factorial value, same thing you can do it with Lambda. And step number 1, you should have an interface, and the interface consists of one method, one abstract method, no body. See here, it is taking a number. If I pass 5, I should get 120. If I pass 4, I should get the appropriate value. So this is important. And then this is my Lambda block. I will not explain the code. Nothing is there to explain. Only thing is we are defining all the logics for factorial inside Lambda. Creating object for interface by passing a number, and this is my body part. And whatever the result it is returning, I'm capturing and I'm printing here. Fact is my object. I'm calling the method factorial, and 5 will be replaced to number. So take a snap of this, try after some time. When the concept is over, when I'm giving the practice session time, at the time you practice this program. Still, if we have any more efficient way to do factorial instead of this user-defined interface and a method, yes, we have some built-in predefined interfaces which are available in Java 8 and later libraries. Still, I can reduce the number of lines of code and I can write an efficient program by using the predefined interface. So we are more enhancing a program with predefined functional interface. In this session, we will be discussing about 4 interfaces, 4 predefined functional interface, which is consumer, supplier, predicate, and function. Don't get confused. Function is different. Functional interface is different. So we are talking about predefined functional interface. There were 4: consumer, supplier, predicate, and the last one is function. Function alone will take 2 parameters. Java 8 provides predefined functional interface to perform functional programming using Lambda. So whatever the functionality we are doing with our regular methods. So those are all predefined in few of the interfaces methods. We are going to explore that. So if we write a programming line for 10 lines, the same thing can be done using functional interface and Lambda with 5 lines. Same thing can be reduced with these interfaces with 3 lines. It's very important. All the predefined functional interface which we are going to discuss today, it is available in java.util.function package. Again, I'm repeating, don't get confused. All the topics comes under functional interface and all are available in function package, whereas this function is different. This is a capitalized word, which is an interface. So listen carefully. We are going to discuss 4 functional interface: consumer, function, predicate, and supplier. As I said, all were functional interface. So how many abstract method will be there?
One.
One, ma'am.
Only one. Only one. Story over. So the first one is consumer. Consumer applies an operation of the type, whatever the data type I'm passing, within that the functionality will be applied. Consumer interface consists of method called as accept method. What is consumer? We will discuss. So function will take this type of value and return this type of value, and it will take apply method. Predicate will is used to something like your testing function. So whenever if I want to test some set of values based on my condition, I can use predicate, and we have a method called as test. Always predicate will return true or false because it is for testing, and the method, abstract method, is test. Supplier will return the respective type, and the method which we have in for supplier is get method. So don't forget, consumer is having accept method, function is having apply, predicate is test, supplier with get. So 4 interface and its corresponding abstract methods. Let's get into the first interface. Consumer. It's simple. Consumer and supplier are the most simple interfaces among all the 4. So in general, what is meant by the term consumer? Consumer. Is the word is new to us?
No, ma'am.
No,
Consumer
ma'am.
is who is called as consumer?
Ma'am, we are called as consumer. Like
When
Correct.
you
we
consume
consume
something.
anything.
Customers, consumers, we all. Let's assume there is a Flipkart application. We are the consumers. We will get the product. Consumers, yeah. are gonna to consume whatever the thing which they are gonna to sell. Please change the meaning slightly here. So yeah, yes. Yeah, whomsoever is going to get the service, gonna to consume that, the service which they are gonna to have. Consumer is a Java 8 built-in functional interface that accepts single input and returns no output. Nothing we want from consumer. Consumer is gonna to get the service, that's all. So likewise, listen carefully. Consumer is a functional interface that accepts one single input. Is there any output? Whether I can return anything from the consumer? No. Consumer and supplier, both are opposite each other. Listen carefully. Consumer will not return a value, whereas it will pass one value. Supplier will not take the value, whereas it will return. So always supplier will return a type. So whenever if I want any object to be consumed, to utilize, there I can use my consumer interface. So it will take input, but it will not return any output. So it will take input, it will do some operation, it will do some calculation, it will do printing, but consumer will not return any value. Consumer will consume one input, consumer will consume an input, it will process, and whereas it will not return any output.
Understood.
So let us have an example. This is whatever I have said in the previously, just for your understanding, but the same thing you need to relate with programming in terms of function aspect. Yeah, so let's take the method public void print all city name. So I assume like I'm creating a consumer object. Consumer, all the values of the type string. I'm creating object for consumer, which is print consumer. It is taking a parameter, and what it is doing, we are printing the data. So first line is a definition for my consumer interface, where it is taking a parameter, which is T parameter, and we are doing processing. Here the processing is printing. I'm not returning any value. And by using my list, and this is another way, as of now, we have used for loop, for each iterator to print all the value in collection. But today I'm going to introduce an internal for each for loop to iterate over all the objects of any collection. So one single line I can able to iterate all the values. So my collection list dot for each, you can call for each as a method, and you can pass your consumer object as a parameter. I'll show you with the demos which we have tried.
What is as list? Array dot as list.
Converting a regular array to a list. Array is different, list is different. So Sydney, Dhaka, New York, London will be considered as an array. That array I'm converting to list, and I'm storing in my left-hand side list interface.
Ma'am, what is this dot as list? Is it
That is what we are discussing. The right-hand side is an array value, collection of string array. Instead of new keyword, or add method. I want to put all my array to a list. So you can use as list method. There were lots of methods. So usually, guys, listen. So I will be creating list string. Let's assume cities is equal to new array list of. We will go by this way, right? These are all conversion method. Cities dot add of. So instead, I have a collection of values. So can I equate to my list directly?
No, ma'am.
So we have a methods to add the data. If I want to convert my array of values to my list, we have a powerful arrays class dot as list method to do the conversion. So now New York, London, everything will be stored as a list object. Further, if I want, I can add. Okay. So come along with me. It's overflow of my coding. Okay, listen. So from the beginning, if I want to populate all the value, we will be using regular for loop, iterator, and the simple way is for each. I hope you are familiar with this syntax.
Yes, ma'am.
So instead of, guys, listen, instead of some 4 lines of for, I can make it in one single line. Listen carefully. Consumer belongs to java.util.function. And here the consumer belongs to the type flight type. So I hope you can assume what is this generic. Here, these are all the data belongs to string type. But whatever the demo I handled, my data belongs to which type? Flight class type. I'm assuming like these are all familiar to you people. Yeah, flight type. Let's assume I want to print an output. Let's assume output 1 is equal to whatever the data I am passing, it has to print. So consumer will take a parameter and you can process that. Here I'm doing just printing as a processing. That's all. So define your consumer object, and this consumer object can be called with the help of method. So the only method available under my consumer interface is accept method. Listen carefully. By using my flight list dot traverse. One second. What method they have called here to traverse? So it is for each. Okay, I'll complete with the demo. Then we will have some user-defined data and we will put a consumer. That's all. So listen, line number 25. So I am using consumer functional interface, an object, and consumer is taking an input and it is doing the processing. Processing is nothing but a printable statement. So with the help of my list, I'm calling for each and every data, this will be applied. When this executes for the first time, whatever the first data. So Delhi and Mumbai will be taken and this object will be passed to my consumer object and it will do printing. And then it will go to second data. The process will continue till 24th record. Listen, for each is an internal for loop used to iterate over objects of any collection. So here we are taking object of consumer interface as a parameter. Please look into the code. So array list dot for each. I am passing the parameter as consumer object. And by the way, we are gonna to iterate throughout the collection. And the lambda function is passed as a parameter for each. In the place of print consumer object, I am passing a lambda expression. I'll show you the
Main purpose of for each.
Yeah, using consumer interface also, we were traversing all the data. So because with the previous block, we have sorted based on descending order of distance. So my flight list has been sorted in the way descending order of distance. So the same data is getting displayed by using consumer interface also. Let me have a few more examples. One second. Guys, please pay attention. We have an alternate way also. So can I replace a lambda expression directly in the place of output one? Is it possible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, listen. So earlier, by using this internal for loop with my list, flight list dot for each, I passed output instead of output. Wait, let me try to replace a lambda expression. This is also possible. Here we are using a direct lambda expression. Here we are passing the object of consumer. As we all know, consumer will take the input and it will do some processing. So here I'm using the printable statement expression as a processing block. The same thing you can use for your collection. Whichever the collection we have tried from the beginning, you can use this for each. Both are same. Here I'm replacing a consumer object, here directly a lambda. Shall I continue with next?
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
think there are much functionality with consumer. If there
Ma'am,
is, I
just
will add
include,
here. I will add whenever I get an any more new things and new examples. But we have that's all. We don't have much functionality associated with consumer. It's okay. It's okay.
Ma'am,
Mm.
can you repeat the for each? What is for each?
Yeah. So in our list, in our collection object, by using a collection object, you can call an attached internal for each. In general, for each are called as iterable block, where whenever if you are calling along with the collection, the default functionality it is traversing from 1 to n. So this is a single line. This line is not having any attachment with the previous any lines. So by using my flight list collection, flight list is my array list object. I'm calling a for each function, and whatever the thing I want to process inside my loop every time when I'm traversing the data. My flight list is having 24 records. So this line will be executed for 24 times. Each time what I wanted to do, I can do inside my for each block. And every time whenever I'm traversing for the first time, the data associated with flight list will be passed as a parameter. And that I am printing here. Even if you want to do something, you can do it. Instead of I, you want to return only from fare, you want to calculate the sum of fare, you can go ahead. Here it is a lambda. You can use a single expression or you can use your block. So when I touch this consumer, I want to include this line.
Okay.
So and this is a method for each E capital letter. It is a method. It is an iterable method, comes along with your collection classes. Just to iterate all the value. This line will be executed for 24 times. So moving on to the next. So consumer will not return a value, whereas it will accept a parameter. The opposite one. Supplier is an opposite of consumer. It will not take any argument, but it returns some value. So consumer will not return a value, whereas it accepts a parameter. But supplier will not take any argument, but it returns some value. And we have a method called as get method to get the value. So supplier is going to return the value. That value you can capture with the help of get method. So whenever if you want to get any object of this type, whatever the type, string type, student type, employee type, flight type. So as I said, it does not take any object as an input, but it produces a value as a return type. So again, in order to have an expression body part, you can use lambda and you can use a return and you can return the value. So as name implicit, supplier is something called as supplying the data, returning the data to whichever the function it is calling. Okay. So in various sprints, I told you to try a random number generator. So one example they have provided with supplier is getting the random number. So supplier of the type integer, any type, object name, guys listen, supplier interface of the type integer, I'm gonna to get object name equal to no input. Whereas it is gonna to return a random number from 0 to 10. So we are using the object random numbers of supplier interface, which is gonna to supply a random number between 0 to 10. Okay, let us have few more example on suppliers. Come along with me. So let me add a new Java class. Let it be demo5. Supplier object is equal to no parameter, whereas it is returning a random class with an extent of n numbers. Supplier object dot, which method I want to get used to get the value, I need to use get. So guys, listen, every time the supplier object is holding one integer value, and I can get the value only by calling the object followed with get method. No need to pass any parameter. As name implicits, get is used to get the value alone. So every time when I execute, I will get a random number from 0 to 10.
Ma'am,
Hmm.
why ma'am this get?
We haven't called except over here, but look into this. Supplier will return an object of the respective data type, and we will use get method to get the value that the supplier object is holding. We haven't used except of supplier, but here in order to get the value, we will be using get. So same thing I'm using for user defined class. So listen, what can I use? Listen. So I'm getting a random number and then I'm referring a file. I'm reading all the details of flight. I'm storing in an object flight list. Let it be. So let me create a supplier object of the type string from city. Wait, let me complete. Please come along with me. Whatever the demo I'm doing, whatever the data I'm dealing, which is not new to you all. I'm just ensuring my supplier needs to return Delhi. All the time we are taking Delhi. Let me take Singapore. Singapore, yeah. My supplier is gonna to return the value here. I'm gonna to return Singapore from my supplier. And based on the supplier city, I need to truncate the value. Let's think. If y dot get to dot equals of get. One second. Let me complete and then I'll tell you what I have tried with this existing flight details. If you find any syntax error, please let me know. Yeah. So I have read all the data from my file. So there were 24 records and I'm gonna to get Singapore data, Singapore from my supplier. So based on the supplier data, I want to compare with all 24 records and I want to return the flight details of Singapore flight details. Let it be. So I want to retrieve the output based on from city Singapore and the Singapore is passed via supplier. I'm sure till reading the data, displaying the data is clear to you. Line number 20 is important. I'm creating a supplier object which is from city, no input, but I'm returning the value. The only purpose of supplier is it returns the value. I know I return the static value. Relate the same with any instead of hard-coded value, any other value we are getting from user via various ways. So I'm going to return the value Singapore. And if I try to get via my supplier method, I will get the returned value Singapore over here. So and then I'm traversing all the details in my flight list. I am fetching from get from my object, which I'm comparing with my supplier get method. If it is there, I am adding in my temporary object and then I'm populating the value by using for each. So I'm returning a static value Singapore from my supplier. With that, I'm comparing wherever I want in my collection, and I can proceed with my operation. Output is not a very big deal. I just wanted to say the only purpose of supplier is to return a value, and that value you can capture with the help of get method.
Ma'am,
Hmm.
can we put line number 20 inside this line number 25 dot get?
Instead of get, what you want to put?
Within the get parameter, can we put add this line
No.
number 20?
No, not possible. Pa. Get is not taking any parameter. So you take your POJO class. None of the place we are passing
Okay,
we are passing the parameters to our get. So we cannot do that.
Yes.
So line number 20 is
ma'am. Yes,
important, and
ma'am.
wherever you want to call, go ahead with get. I know get and what is this? Get supplier and consumer are simple functional interface. So let's get into one more complex interface, which is predicate.
Ma'am, wait for 1 minute, ma'am.
Mhm.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, this is always used to generate a result without even passing any data as a parameter. I used a static value, let it be. Listen, these two are simple interface. So let's get into the next interface. Before that, there is a just a minute question. What we need to replace in question mark? List
Name.
dot for each. Name is passing as a parameter. So you need to pass the parameter as a printable statement. All of you agree always this for each, whatever the input we are passing, that input only we are going to process inside my lambda expression. Listen carefully. Moving on to the next interface, which is predicate. So predicate is a functional interface which represents single argument function, but always this function will return Boolean, true, false. Always this predicate is used to filter the data. And it's very important for predicate, you need to define a function. And the function name is filter. So this is totally different. So we will be defining a static function which is filter, which will take my collection as a parameter. And the second parameter is a predicate object. Predicate whatever the type followed with my object. This is a user-defined function which the user wants to define. We need to traverse all the value based on my predicate test functionality. I need to filter the record and I want to do any operation, or I want to do printable, whatever I want, I can use. Listen, this is a definition of my filter method of predicate. Whereas in a main method, we will use predicate to get the condition. According to this program, we are creating an object for predicate and we are getting the name whose name starts with C. This condition will be passed as a condition to this filter method. In main method, I will be defining a predicate object and I will apply some condition. And this object I will be passed as a parameter to my filter method. So based on the condition, the data getting filtered in my filtered method. When you try to print the data, I will get only filtered data. So predicate is somewhat complex method. You need to define a filter method. You need to define your predicate object and you need to call your filter method. Let me implement the same in my program. Guys, I'm taking my demo file. Step 1.
Ma'am.
Whatever the
Wait,
theory we
wait for
discussed,
2
I'm going to
seconds.
apply. Yeah, you take a snap of this.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm doing the same. So step number 1, public, apart from main method, you define a static void. What is the method name? Filter. See here, this is my demo 5 class. Already I have main, which I have created some time back. Apart from that, there should be filter. So what should be the first parameter of my filter function?
Test.
So let me give the name as, for your identification, let me give the name as filter function. What should be the first parameter?
List.
First parameter will be the list and second parameter will be the predicate object. So first parameter will be my array list of the type flight. And I'm giving the name as flight object. And the second parameter is my predicate of the type flight. I'm calling with the name P1. Will it be okay? So it's very important in my main method or wherever I am calling, I'll be creating a predicate object. So let's assume, can I create with P2? Is it possible?
Yes, ma'am.
It is just a name, that's all. So I need a expression. So whatever the data, so tell me what can I do? Can I check with fair? What condition I can add to filter the data? Oh, this is a string, so I cannot use. I'll take distance. Shall I take distance? Or shall I take from city where?
Ma'am, please take
Ma'am,
from city, ma'am.
Okay. So I dot get from dot equals compare to or starts with S. So whichever the from city starts with S, I want to print the name. It is not, it should be string function. I'm sorry, yes. So as per my data, so San Francisco and Singapore are starting from S. I should get the details of San Francisco and Singapore. As per my predicate condition, I should get, because it is an object, flight object. From there, I'm calling get from method, getter method. And the condition is it should starts with S. It's very important. You need to call predicate, you should call filter function. And the first parameter is my collection and the second parameter is my predicate object. Here I'm creating as P2, here I'm capturing it as P1. So whatever the operation I want to do, I can do it. So for traverse all the value with your flight object, if, what is the condition? According to
P1 dot get
test of X. So the condition is always you need to use predicate object and you need to call test method and you need to apply the object. I'll use the same. So P1 is my predicate object, this condition. I'm testing with my data. With this data, it will check get from and it is checking whether it is starting from S. If it is starting from S, then I'm printing the data. Else it will not print the data. Just flights flight name begins with S. So flight name begins with S, whichever the from city begins with S, that data alone I'm getting. San Francisco and Singapore record. As expected, we are getting this output. Output is not a very big deal. Idea behind is we are using predicate interface.
Hello, ma'am.
Hmm.
Can you show that syntax of predicate?
Yeah. So we need to define a function. Yeah.
Every time it will be a static function.
Because you can call directly. If it is non-static, you need to create object for the class. That's all. I don't think static makes much impact on this. No, you can go for non-static also.
Okay, ma'am.
Can I return anything from my object? It can be non-static also. It can return the value also. Not at all a problem. So if it is a non-static, I should call with class name. What is the class name here? Demo file. Don't get confused with the fundamental topic. Earlier the filter function is static, so I can call directly. Main is also static. If it is non-static, what I need to do? I need to create
Make
an
object.
And can I return? Yeah, I can return also. See here. Let's assume temp.
Instead of print, we can add to that.
Correct. So I should use temp dot add of x, and don't forget to return temp. And here you need to capture the temp, and you can print the temp dot for each So don't get confused with the Java fundamentals. I modified in such the way the function without static and with return type. And the type is again a collection. Instead of print statement, add it in temp and return the temp, and temp is a collection. Every time I am adding the object, every single line.
Without test, it will be printed.
In print of U only, let it be instead of what data I'm having. Let me print L. We have London and Los Angeles. I'm doing only in front of you only. With, without static, with, without void. Here you can print, but this is what expected, guys, in our sprint. Nowhere you should use printable statement in your method. Always the method needs to return the value. So this is how you need to construct your sprint methods. So you can take the snap. According to this demo program, they made static and void. If it is void, you can print, but as per our sprints, nowhere it is print statement or void. You need to return. Here it is a collection, I'm returning. So the last interface is function interface, and this is all familiar to us. Sorry. So function interface is one of the functional interface, as name implicits what? So it will take an argument, it will take both input and it will produce both the output also. Input and return type are specified in generic interface. It is similar to our regular way of function. So consumer will not return, supplier will not take parameter. So predicate is used to test. If I want to do any operational thing, I can do it with function. Function is a generic interface that take one argument and produce a result. And function is having one abstract method, which is apply. It will take input as well as it produce an output. The demo which we discussed in the beginning, factorial of the number. Instead of defining a function and doing a factorial, or defining a function and making a recursive function, you can do it with functional interface function. Please start from the line 1. Can you see the first line? There should be a function keyword. What do you mean by integer and integer?
Input type integer and return type integer.
This is input and this is output. Input type and return type, both are integer. It may varies. And my function name, it is taking an input which is integer type. And whatever the, see, we have more statements. So use lambda, block lambda, open and close curly braces. So one, you traverse with all the value. Every time you do sum up with one to given number and store it in result, and you return the result. It's very important. You will be calling the function object dot apply method and you will pass the parameter input. Take the snap. I want you to try. Do I want to define a function here?
No, ma'am.
Do I want to define an explicit function?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
All the 7-8 lines you will be writing in your main method. So take a snap, you try this. I'll try some other function of this type. So this factorial, I want you to give a try. So if you want, you can take a snap. Take a snap of this factorial and try. Okay, let me do a simple program. So function, which is taking the input type and return type. So integer, comma, integer. So function object is equal to, let's assume it is taking number and it is returning number into number. Function 1 dot apply of 6. Is it possible?
Yes, ma'am.
Function let me pass integer and let me get string. Fun2 is equal to, so if I pass some x, it should return total marks. That's x. Fun2 dot apply of, let's assume 67. Is it possible?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you have more than one line, you can use block lambda. This is also possible. Don't forget to call fun3. So it is taking integer, so you need to pass integer value, whereas it is returning string. So I can call within a printable statement because it is returning a value. So I'm passing an input, it's a block lambda. So I can have a loop or I can have a conditional construct. So 67 will be replaced to x. Whichever the condition matches, it will return the appropriate value. So 67, and it will be an average. For a 97, it will be an excellent grade. Only for predicate, you need to define one function that will take a collection and predicate object as a parameter. So remaining everything you can try within a method. Is it possible to find average of all the distance? Can I find out average of all 24 distance?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we try, or you will try? I have 24 records. So I need to traverse all the 24 records distance, sum it and divide it by total. But I want you to do it with function.
We will try, ma'am.
It is possible. Possible path. Practice few demos. The first one is for each function, and the second one is consumer interface for printing. The third one is supplier interface for fetching the value. Get. So you can use predicate. So starts with or ends with. or greater than, less than value, greater than the respective distance. And you try factorial with function. And the last one is finding average of distance in flight details using function interface. It's capital letter. Apart from that, these are all I'm sharing for your practice. You can do it. So I want you to try a simple for each with your list. Try 1 or 2 simple demos on consumer supplier. So predicate, you can try with string values or integer value with greater than. Factorial, the snap which you have taken, you try. And the last one is by using function interface, try to find the average distance in the flight details which you have been provided. It is possible, try. I'm giving you 1 hour time. Around 12 o'clock, I will be rolling out the sprint for today.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Share it.